The favorites, we here for the latest. South side or the north side, not tuned to the greatest. Home team for the home teams. Both sides got our own rings. On the mound or the long ball, but we don't put the wrong strings. Yeah. It's that time of the year now. Wrigley or Gantes or the whole league that we hear now. New show with a new mood. Discussions and interviews. Trade rumors that might be. This is Pinwheels and Knife.
Welcome to the Pinwheels and Ivy podcast. I'm joined along with Kevin and Mitch. No Zoe today, but we'll see him next week. And honestly, Zoe's going to need a lot of nights off after what Lynn did Wednesday night in Kansas City. He was already tweeting about a couple 30 racks. I think they each need some 30 racks after that shellacking. But as always, the Pinwheels and Ivy podcast is brought to you by Sports Mockery. Download the Sports Mockery app and visit sportsmockery.com. Blackhawks just won the lottery. Maybe the Bulls will too. Boys, let's go. Let's see. Let's go a little positive here because the timeline has been not fun, as I would say, the last few days in Chicago. Both sides of town, past couple weeks, even with the White Sox winning a few games on the road, it hasn't been all that great. The Cubs salvage Game 3 against the Cardinals. Justin Steele, his streak he had 14 starts in a row, allowing 2 earned runs or fewer. That broke, but still quality start. Cubs win 10-4. Cubs finally brought up last Friday Matt Mervis, but they brought up Christopher Morel on Monday. No more excuses except for Eric Hosmer's on the team.
They were listening to the show last week for the most part.
But I'll live with it for now. Kevin, what do you say? I think Kevin, actually, I wanted to start with this. I don't know if you mentioned it on the show before, Kevin, or if you tweeted it out, how as good as the Cubs got off in October, especially those first 3 weeks, I think they were like around 12-8. Great start. Obviously, they had only lost that first series in Milwaukee. This is pretty much what many of us thought the team was going to be. It was going to be around a 500 team. They were going to go on good runs, and then they were going to go on bad runs. The way that they've been losing is the frustrating part. It's so many one-run losses, the terrible hitting with runners in scoring position. Yeah. But, you take a step back. This is kind of what we thought we were going to get. So we can't complain too much, I guess. What do you got, Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, and the fact you bring up a really good point, too, is the fact that the Cubs have played in a lot of one-run games. And one-run games do one thing very well, and that is expose a managerial collection of moves, whether it's leaving a guy in one pitch too long or not pinch hitting in the right spot. And, for the Cubs, I think the big frustration the Cub fans are seeing with this, especially recent stretch, is that in a lot of these one-run losses, they were winnable games and there were questionable decisions that didn't put the Cubs in the best position to win in the same situation. So David Ross is taking a lot of heat right now. I've seen a lot of anti-Ross stuff, but this team they are who they are. They're a one heater away from being maybe like an 8-game over 500 team. This is not a 95 win team. This is a team that might win, I think we said 85. I think it was what I called maybe 85 or 86. That's them having a good heater, but you got to hover around 500 for that to even happen. And, we talked about it before we went on. There's a little kind of a rough May to finish May. The next 20 days, they're going to be pretty, a nice stiff test for the Cubs, when we see where they are when you get out on the other side of this thing. But, a lot of these one-run games have really exposed David Ross's decision-making, whether it's yesterday leaving Asada in for what was the 6th inning of work, and then, gives up, obviously, in the 9th inning, gives up the jack, and then it gives up another run. Then all of a sudden, David Ross somehow has the horses to pull him mid-inning after he's already given up the lead when he should never have started the inning in the first place. I think Cub fans are probably the most frustrated by that. I think all the other stuff, the timely hitting is kind of a byproduct of that as well, because putting guys in the position to succeed, he hasn't done that really well. We talked about the pinch hitting stuff. Patrick Wisdom goes up there, guys on first and third, 1 out in the top of the 9th in a tie game. What does he rolls into, or bottom of that rolls into a double play, swinging at the first pitch and try to shorten up, which is weird for Patrick Wisdom. Then the next day, same situation, guys on second and third, down 1, infield drawn in, and Nick Madrigal, a 4% contact guy against power pitchers on the bench. Patrick Wisdom, a 56% strikeout rate. against power pitchers just in general, let alone like in high leverage situations. Sticks with Wisdom too. Wisdom strikes out swinging, then doesn't shorten up when all he had to do was shorten up and chases the pitch, at his eyebrows, and he's out. The next day, same situation, second and third, Cubs were tied, I believe, right? Or no, they were down one. And Magical comes up to hit, didn't pitch hit for anybody, just Magical was hitting in his spot. Happened to happen. Second, third, same situation, less than 2 outs. Magical hits a base hit, contact up, gets both runs in, basically wins the ball game there. And you can sit there and go, God dang it. Like this win, those 4 or 5 wins should never have been, or losses should never have been losses. And that's what you're going to look at the end of the season if the Cubs are 1 or 2 games. People are keenly aware of that. You can lose, you can lose your chances and opportunities in April. You can lose a season in April. It's not just because they're in April doesn't mean they don't matter. And these games, especially if the Cubs do kind of finish strong, like they seem to kind of do a little bit, because they're playing kind of low leverage games a lot. So they might finish a little bit stronger with a little bit of a run. And people are like, look at those games. If we just had those 5 back. And I think that's where Cub fans are frustrated right now. But it's still, there's a couple timely knocks away from winning a bunch of balls. Like that's great.
Taya hit one to the warning track the other day, didn't he? With like the base, wasn't it like bases loaded?
Bases loaded.
It was like one of those just missed it.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, and he's the guy. Seiya Suzuki has been the guy who he's been either hitting cleanup or batting 5th as of late. And starting with the Miami Marlins series, like every one of those games, they lost by 1, I believe. And I think the first 2 games, Seiya Suzuki came up with either the bases loaded or 2 runners on, and he hit into like 3 double plays in 2 games. Yeah. And then like on Sunday, I think it happened again. And it's like, he has been a good hitter. There's been so much shit talked about Seiya Suzuki because of a 2-week slump. And like it's like Cubs fans just forgot about like the past. I think I looked it up. It was like the past 300 plate appearances. He was slashing like 280 with a 370 on base percentage and a 450 slugging. He was a very good hitter. 2-week slump. Obviously, you hate to see it because it happened so many times that he came up with guys on base and he just kept rolling into double plays. I saw this tweeted a couple times. Now, I don't know if it was brought up during the Fox national broadcast on that Saturday game in Miami, if it was in a post-game show, a pre-game show, or one of the broadcasts. Maybe I missed it because I think the Sunday game was on Peacock. I didn't watch that broadcast. Apparently, David Ross told Seiya Suzuki, who's been hitting cleanup, "Hey man, you're a 4 hitter. You got to hit for more power." Was kind of the paraphrase of what I've seen tweeted. Seiya Suzuki is 28. He was a star in Japan. Last year, say what you want about him, as disappointing as some fans think it, he was still a good hitter.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you trying to change up and like basically mess up one of like a guy who knows how to hit, who knows what he's doing at the plate, and then you're putting this into his head? I saw that. Now again, I didn't hear it firsthand. I've only seen tweeted at me a few times. But if that is true, that is another knock against David Ross. Like, what are you doing?
Seiya Suzuki knows how to hit. He's a far superior hitter than David Ross ever dreamed of being as a catcher in the show. So
like, why try to change that mentality of a guy who's been
Whoa. Hold up. Like before the season, weren't we predicting like 40 bombs to the guy? Now all of a sudden, he's not a home run hitter. You just let him go out in there and hit long right.
He got hurt though, so like let the guy be the guy. Whatever he's doing with his body at this point,
that's
you don't want to go out and be something they're not. If you're a cheetah, be a fucking cheetah. If you're a leopard, be a leopard. If you're a zebra, be a zebra. But telling someone, telling a chipmunk that they're supposed to be a lion is just fucking stupid. And you let your guys play. You play what they do with their strengths. You don't make them something they're not. And if David Ross can't, if that is really true, and David Ross can't figure out how to utilize his players with their specific skill sets as one cohesive unit, he's fucking terrible and shouldn't be his job. That's the honest truth. He shouldn't be commanding and running a lineup if he can't find a blend of the talent that he has that best optimizes what they do across the board. That is the definition of the only thing coaches have to do now as a job in the major leagues. Everything else is done for him. So if you can't do that, he doesn't belong. And so if that is true, it's not even more of a knock. That's a red flag more than even a knock. That's a problem. And that would be add to the more disturbing stuff of like, leaving a guy in for the 6th inning of relief, or, not playing David, what it feels like? David Ross feels like he's like a day late and a dollar short. It's almost like the game is
Danny brought it up on the playback with the Marlins game they did with him.
Yeah.
He's like, just every move seems like he's just behind.
Yeah.
Well,
he's buffering.
It seemed like when they hired him from an outside perspective, it was like, that's a little odd. Like, it did seem like a little bit like, all right, they're like promoting him from within because he was, catchers usually make good managers or whatever. But there seemed like a little, what do you call it?
Fan service?
Yeah, well, I mean, basically, it's almost a little like Rick Renteria-ish, where like now all of a sudden, like he didn't have any pressure with these last couple teams because they're trying to like develop something. Now all of a sudden that he has some talent around him, and almost not even like I don't even think it's because like 2020 White Sox, I don't think we're supposed to contend. This team I think is still like technically a year away, but now that you're seeing him, nepotism, that's the word. Thank you.
Nepotism.
Yeah, there was a little bit of nepotism there. But now that you see him in some situations where he needs to win, and just kind of like Rick Renteria, like you can see he's like kind of getting exposed. Where before it didn't matter because he was just developing guys, but now he's got talent, and now you're seeing like what he can actually do as a manager. And
I've seen a lot of
starting to show.
I've seen a lot of people defend him, saying, "Well, 2020 he was coaching in high leverage game." No, there were no fans in the stands. Like it literally was a fucking scrimmage every day. So 2020 doesn't count when you compare like high leverage situations.
2020 in my mind.
Your testosterone's not going on tilt because the crowd's going nuts and you got to make decisions in a logical manner despite the fact that everything is going chaotic. And so you're right. I mean, Ricky Renteria, and we don't even know if Ricky Renteria, if the spotlight was too big for him because he only got really one chance in the spotlight and it was his first taste. And then it was boom to Tony La Russa with the Cubs. They canned him for Joe Madden before he got a chance to even get any of the talent. So like he's never really had that. But with Rossi, you put him out there and yeah, I mean Rossi was a kind of it was fan service. It was nepotism in a lot of ways because of his relationship with Jed and Theo, and I mean they brought in their boy and. We don't know. I mean,
well,
I guess
it feels like it's the first time the training wheels are off and you're seeing like what his managing chops are actually like. And so far, the other things are a little
so far. By the way, shout out to friend of the show, Greg Huss at Out of the Vines. He quote tweeted this on Tuesday night after Ross left in Assad to start the 9th inning in a tie game, which was basically a start for Assad. It was his 6th inning. And this is what Greg tweeted out right before Ross was hired after 2019. He said, "How are you planning on enjoying your last few months of loving David Ross before you're required to hate him because he removed the starter an inning too early?" I mean, that's basically been at least a few times every week this season.
Well, I will say this for the Cubs, though, at least. And, it's still early in the year, but it's better to find out now that the guy you have can't manage as opposed to the White Sox when you had everything in place and it was like, oh, yeah, hiring Tony was a bad idea. In the thick of like when this team was supposed to be contending at a quarter. Like I said, like the Cubs are still a year away. So this is the time now to like find out kind of what you have with David Ross. Because at the end of the day, like I think most people coming into the year like thought they would be like, a frisky and fun team. I don't think anyone really thought, this Cubs team's a serious contender. So you might as well find out what you have with David Ross now and, heading into next year. If you
and
have
speaking of finding out, the Cubs finally are at least going to find out with Matt Mervis. Called up Friday. He started all 3 games against the Marlins, faced a couple of lefties, and then the first game was Cabrera, who had reverse splits. Tough against left-handed hitters. And then he started the first 2 games against the Cardinals. Slow start. I think he has 3 or 4 hits in the first 5 games or so. A couple clutch RBIs though. But at least, like we said, Kevin, before the whole, banging the table for him was one of the reasons that Cubs fans wanted Matt Mervis up was for that reason, to find out if he's good or not, to find out if he is your long-term answer at first base.
The props for him to getting that first hit out of the way. I feel like with that many expectations, like that's like the toughest one to get. And you can see how relieved he was too when he did get it. So that was like cool. I was actually really happy for him, especially in front of that good crowd there. But there's a lot of pressure to get that first one out of the way, especially in your debut, and he did it. So as much as it's been a slow start, props for him to rise to the occasion in his first true like big game of his MLB career.
Well, here's what Cub fans need to realize too: is like Mervis, for example. These guys are going to go I don't know how many times we got to bang the drum on this show about rookies. They're going to go 2 steps forward, 1 step back. 2 steps forward. It ain't going to be clean. It ain't going to be easy. It's going to be frustrating as hell. There's going to be hot spells and moments of brilliance. But the problem with the Cubs are they can't afford to have 3 of those in the lineup on a consistent basis. If you're gonna have Morel, and they just did this. They've been going through with Amaya. They sent Miguel Amaya back down, but they've been truly operating, for a couple games here with the 6 or the 7, 8, 9, all basically rookies. And you've got, Christopher Morel actually looks pretty good so far to start, but he did that last year. It's the adjustments for him and his base running, which is very, very sketch to me. And you've got Mervis that's going to have great moments, and he's going to have to figure out if he is, but. If you're doing this, if these guys are playing, and if you're going to get what everyone wants, which is no more Hosmer, we're just going to go with these guys and let these guys sink or swim. The Cubs are not a contender. The Cubs aren't a serious player to even be a postseason team because the lack of consistency to go along with, again, guys that are like Patrick Wisdom hit a jack tonight. Wonderful. That was his 10th hit since April 20th. He's hitting like 159 or whatever since April 20th. He's taken a few walks here and there, but you can't have guys disappear for long stretches. And if you have a couple younger players, rookies / Morel's kind of a rookie, but you know what I mean? You're gonna have just goose eggs sometimes. And so the Cubs fans have to kind of decide, do you want to contend now? Then you're going to have to get little tastes of them as they develop a little bit, because you're going to have to keep playing veterans and kind of get guys in and out. But you can't just sit here and let Matt Mervis struggle, which sucks for Matt Mervis. In a perfect world, he could just play the string out and not be expected to, if the Cubs, a year ago would have been perfect because the Cubs were not serious. But this year they've kind of sold that seriousness. And so now the Cubs kind of have to decide, are they really serious about winning?
I think it's the same thing with David Roth. I don't think, look, I know they're better than what they were. I still don't think it's I think you can let them play the string out, because as fun as that start was, this team's not a contender. And I think most people knew that. They're still trying to figure out what they got. So you might as well play them. There's no point in playing the veterans, because I don't think, the Cubs, they can say, they can give you all the lip service they want in the front office. They know, the 1 year where they're oh, it's a retool. They knew it was a rebuild. They knew this year's kind of just a tryout to see what they have here. You might as well let the kid come up there and, take his lumps now. Because it's the same thing, better now than next year, trying to find out what you have with them when, you got Dansby, everyone's in place, and you're trying to contend.
This Cubs team doesn't feel it does feel like they're still a year away. And I feel like an idiot because I think I jumped the gun because I keep getting people in my ear saying I'm being too pessimistic when all I call it is kind of logical. So this year I kind of overtly bought in. And I think that maybe the guts that we had that, we're still another year away was right all along. But they made just enough moves to get everybody get the blood pumping a little bit more, sell a little bit more tickets. But this team is not going to stand up in the end, barring some sort of massive, something opening up for some of these guys and all of a sudden playing incredible baseball, because this collection just isn't consistent enough. And it doesn't hit good pitching well enough.
And here's the thing. I agree with you guys where in terms of the Cubs are a year away. But, similar to the AL Central the last few years, the NL Central sucks.
Yeah.
So even if the Cubs are still a year away, they can still take advantage of this year and win the division because it's that bad. This past week, I think the Pirates, the Brewers, and the Cardinals, before the Cardinals came into Chicago and won 2 of 3, I think they combined to lose 20 games in a row. The NL Central sucks. The Cubs are 2.5 games back right now. They're 1 game under 500.
Absolutely. And that's not to say they couldn't surprise some people and sneak into the playoff, but I'm not stunting Matt Mervis's growth just because, we got to start the veteran here because we might be able to win 80 games and sneak into the wild card spot.
Because the veterans aren't good. the veteran is Eric Hosmer, who, again, it's not just Eric Hosmer this past month of what he was. It's not Eric Hosmer of 2022. Eric Hosmer has been a below average player for the last 5 years. We know what Eric Hosmer, at best, he's going to be an average hitter. At the very best. So it's the drop off of him to see what you have in Matt Mervis. You take the unknown of this guy could be good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
At least for me.
And you have to know
that doesn't, to me, Kevin, saying that, I don't get the correlation of saying, if they're playing all these rookies, that means that they don't want to contend.
I'll be honest. I just don't. If you're playing them exclusively, okay, which if they're not, you're going to fucking shit your pants and hate it, because that means that you're going to see the other left-handed bat in the Cubs locker room play on a consistent basis. You just can't. You can't throw those guys to the wolves in another manner. You have to pull them back sometimes when they're near the precipice. And if he goes in one of those really rough spells where his potential confidence is at risk, he's going to have to sit. You have to pull him back from the ledge.
No, he will.
And that's the thing, is you can't. So it's not just playing out the string. If the Cubs are contenders, it's low impact, it's low leverage. It doesn't hurt the same way it does striking out in a game when your team is in a hunt, and that can be really detrimental to someone's mental development. And so that's where that's what I mean by that is, obviously, if you think that Matt Mervis, is going to hit 250, and finish the season, maybe hit like 15 home runs and drive in, I don't know, like 50 runs, that's a pretty decent rookie year, I would say. That's not the kind of production a team like the Cubs really need right now to be contenders, because that's
my point is the comparison of that is like double the production that you're going to get from the other option.
I'm calling bullshit on that.
Why?
Because first off, Eric Hosmer has going into last night had a 461 batting average with runners in scoring position. So he is a guy you want in those situations. He is a veteran at bat that takes pitches. Yesterday, one of his outs was literally an 11 pitch strikeout that he got boned on a fucking call that should have been ball 4. Okay. So there's things that he does well, and he showcased a bunch of pitches. And guess what? Morel goes up there. He got to see all the stuff in the repertoire. He has things that bring value to what he does. He shouldn't be an everyday starter. But he is a guy that's going to have to spell these guys, and you have to use him on a frequent basis. And I don't think that in small bunches he's worthless like you do. I think that he brings some value. Again, value is different to every person. I value a guy that's going to go up there and strike out on 11 pitches. Guess what? He just made the two guys behind him better, because now they know what they can expect, and it worked because Christopher Morel went up there, came back, and after he hit that jack, he came in, and guess who the first person he's talking to? Hosmer in the dugout about what he saw, because he got a chance to talk about what he saw, what he was going to see up there because of an extended at bat. And these are the things that I think he brings value to. He does fight pitches off. He's not going to fucking carry a team on his back. He's an 8 hitter. He's a 7 hitter. In honesty, he's a platoon guy. It's what he should be. But he was supposed to be kind of like a platoon over there with Mancini a little bit. But the at bats are going to have to happen here later. But now with Morel up, you can see where things go. Morel, though, is the same way. Can Christopher Morel keep this up? We saw Christopher Morel most of the end of last season, and it was horrid. It was damaging to the lineup. So if we know this too, it takes about a month for these guys to get enough tape and enough data on these guys before they formulate a plan that beats them. And it's about adjustments. And last year, Morel didn't show the ability to adjust midstream. If they make an adjustment here now, we could be seeing what we see again. We need to see a full season. So, but again, I don't know. I don't buy into the Hosmer has a zero value kind of thing. I do think he has value. I mean, unless there's a better bat in the Cubs system that's from the left side, he's a necessary evil. He, unfortunately, for people that don't like him, you can't have a winning team with no left-handed bats on your bench and no left-handed arms in your bullpen. That's just not possible.
And I don't think I'm with you. Like everywhere Hosmer's gone, everyone says he's an excellent teammate, and there is some value to have that guy to show him the ropes. He's like, going back to White, it's like almost like a John Jay type player. You bring him in for a year, he's good in the clubhouse.
Cubs legend, John Jay.
Yeah, there you go.
370 on base percentage, baby.
But I wouldn't even be platooning. Like it's fine for like a spot star here or there or to play him. Obviously, if like Mervis and Hughes slump. But I think the worst thing that could happen is kind of like what the Sox had with Oscar Colas is where hey, this is our year. We're putting a lot of expectations on you, even though you're untested and haven't figured it out. You got to get Mervis as many reps as he can. And it's fine to have Hosmer there every day, hey, do that, show him a professional looking at bat, like Kevin said. If he's in a slump, you got a guy that can take some pressure off him. But if I'm David Robb, I'm finding a way to get him as many reps as possible early on, seeing as many MLB pitches as I can. Because one, you got to see what you have, and two, it's only going to be more beneficial for him down the road next year when all of a sudden he's in a situation that counts, and it's like, oh yeah, I've been in this situation before last.
So, and he needs to get exposed too. He needs to get exposed so he can adjust. He needs to keep getting to the point where teams are making adjustments, and he's having to learn how to make adjustments on the fly. That's the beautiful thing about like a Hosmer. When those moments that hit where like say shit, they just figure something out. Hey, let's give you 2 days off. We're gonna have you work in the cage on a bunch of shit that they just exposed. Then you can come back and then boom, you hop right into it and you ride out. You know, that's what Mervis brings, or Hosmer, excuse me, brings as a vet. He can handle sitting for 5-6 games and then popping in there. Like he can emotionally handle it. He's probably enjoying the fucking ride for all we know. You know what I mean? And he is a fun guy. So I mean,
he's
the way he's hit, the production would be about the same anyway with the rust.
What do you mean? He's only 175 out.
One last thing to wrap up on the Hosmer talk from Bleacher Nation. By expected weighted on base average, which measures the quality of contact plus walks and strikeouts, Eric Hosmer is the second worst hitter in all of baseball this year.
Which goes to show that stats aren't always.
Well, no, it's a predictive stat. It's saying that his results aren't as good as the numbers seem. They're not actually.
Which is great.
Some numbers that actually do.
You're trying to prove that someone doesn't belong there. You can find a lot of stats, but I just look at the runners in scoring position and say that's a guy I want up there in certain situations. If your manager is putting people in the correct position to succeed.
Eric Hosmer, I think I told you this in that Washington series with Patrick Wisdom. Even if it was Nick Madrigal, I would get Hosmer out there because he makes contact. He hits ground balls. He can get him past guys who are drawn in.
He shortens up really well. I think.
But I'm leaning more towards Mitch's side here. Like he's purely you start him one time a week, and when you start him, you don't hit him in the middle of the lineup. You'd hit him 8th. You treat him like you treat Patrick Wisdom. Like there's no reason other guys should be batting below him because he's.
Here's the sad part though of how not great the Cubs have been. He is basically third in the team, roughly third, fourth in the team, and basically RBIs. Like he's had more RBIs than Seiya, more RBI than Magical. I mean, Velasquez Morel's actually going to catch everybody thinking like in a day. It feels like, but even going into tonight, you know, Yan Gomes wasn't there either, but he kind of jumped up with his bomb. But he's actually only 1 RBI less than Dansby Swanson. I mean, and Dansby, the massive difference in who they are, you know. But yeah, I'm just saying, like sometimes you look at these numbers, and you know, when he's in the right spots and he's used properly, the guy could be a nice little weapon off your bench. Again, in contact situations, in veteran at bat moments, and that's what you really need.
But that's the thing that's what I want.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I want Ross to stick to because I've accepted the Cubs like him. The Cubs like Eric Hosmer. I don't, but it's fine. They like him, so he's on the team. But like we said, with like the pitching changes, the other lineup stuff, maximize the guys, put them in the best places to succeed.
And that's what
even
Rossi's
more of that.
doing. Rossi's doing it.
A couple final things to wrap up on Cubs talk before we switch over to the Sox. Unfortunately, for
by the way, left-handed bat coming up. I'm going to throw this in there. Why don't we just have Owen Casey come up? Thanks.
Owen Casey, 20 years old. If you guys don't know about him, Cubs fans, look up Owen Casey. That guy is 20 years old. Has like 1,000 OPS in double A. He's 20. He's facing guys who are 3 to 4 years older than he is. The one good thing about that Yu Darvish trade, it looks like. But Dansby Swanson's finally slugging. He's on fire. I think he has like 5 extra base hits in the last 2 games.
2 doubles and a
keeps
homer
getting on base. Right? Yeah, 2 doubles and a homer, and then I think he had 2 more doubles Wednesday night. Ian Happ keeps getting on base. Seiya Suzuki slumping. That's the other thing with this 2-week slump since the Miami series. As a team, it's just like all the guys that are going crazy in the first couple weeks, they're not anymore. You know, so you know Patrick Wisdom, as you said, since it was like 2.5 weeks now, was slumping bad. And when you don't have his power, in the lineup, there aren't guys who hit home runs. The Cubs went, I think, 10 games with 1 home run. You're not going to win games. That's how you outlast those long stretches of hitting poor with runners in scoring position. When you have a guy who can come up there and hits a 3-run home run, that the Cubs just didn't have that. But Yan Gomes has been incredible. 6 home runs. For him. At this point, Yan Gomes is like team leader for me. He's the veteran leader. It seems like the Cubs just keep winning when he's playing. I think they're 13-7 now, and they're 5-12 without him. Something like that. Maybe the math checks out. But Dansby's hot. Seiya finally get to see Seiya get a couple hits on Wednesday because he was struggling bad.
Belly's cooled a little bit, but he's still finding ways on.
Yes. That dude isn't just the defense. He almost threw a guy out that he had no chance of throwing out. He's just so special. And by the way, I mean, it's probably, I'm sure any team that Cody Bellinger would be on and he was at this great start, any GM would say like, oh, we want to keep him around. But Cubs GM Carter Hawkins, not AI, confirmed, or maybe he is. I don't know. AI is really advanced now, so maybe they took a copy of his voice.
It is.
He was on the score talking about keeping Bellinger, and I know I brought it up last week, and Mitch, you were like, let's wait it out a bit, and you're right about that because what if he just sucks for the next month? But we have seen several times before with Cubs prospects, not just Cubs prospects, but prospects around sports. You take the proven commodity. I am not going to sit here and be like, but we have Pete Crow Armstrong coming up. No. If you can sit down with Cody Bellinger and work out a long-term deal, you work out that long-term deal with Cody Bellinger. Mm-hmm. You don't be like, Cody, loved you for the season, opt out, make your money. We got a couple prospects coming up. No,
or flip them at the deadline.
you figure that out later. Yep. Any other Cubs stuff? Oh, we have not given enough love to Ben Brown.
Oh, Kevin. This is a Ben Brown podcast as far as I'm
Ben Brown. And again, right now the Cubs have it's legitimately like 4 or 5 pitching prospects who on any given night you can like pull up the MILB app or whatever and go to the box scores and be like, this guy struck out 8 in 5 innings, gave up 1 hit, looks incredible. But Ben Brown is above and beyond all these guys right now.
Best arm in the organization. Best arm in the organization. I'm gonna beat that drum like a rented mule. He is the best. He has the best stuff of anybody in the Chicago Cubs organization, and I include everybody at the top level. His stuff is filthy and effortless, and I am every time the more I watch him, the more I'm like.
He just has that it factor, the poise on the mound, the presence. He has the presence, it's like yes, this guy's a stud. He's a star. He's going to be a star. He just has it. He just has it on the mound. Ben Brown, 23. I think he's going to be called up August maybe to be in the bullpen, at the very least in the bullpen. Get him his first MLB taste, like what the Sox used to do, like with Sale. They did it with other guys too. And the Cubs have done it recently too. Justin Steele, Keegan Thompson. Ben Brown, guys. Ben Brown's going to be a star.
6'6". What is he? 6'6", 210, right? What is he, like 3-0 with a .59 ERA and 6 starts?
He's given up
47
2 earned runs in 30 and 2/3 innings.
Sub 1 whip. Just filthy.
47 strikeouts. No, this dude's going to be a stud.
I mean, there's something to be said about tall pitchers and having a presence on the mound because you get that long stride, the ball's coming at the hitter faster. I mean, he's got, like you said, filthy stuff as it is, and then you take that massive frame, shortening the distance that fastball is coming in at you. Doesn't matter what level you're at. It's going to be harder to hit. There's a reason why they have a stat on Baseball Savant, extension. It's for exactly like guys, Ben Brown, because that ball looks like it's coming in a lot faster than it is.
The other stuff that we see this year with just one last note on like minor league ball here is that especially for AA guys, that I think I shared that story with you guys, how they're testing out that new sticky stuff at AA. Like MLB is trying to get their own new approved substance, but they're testing it out at AA. And everyone's like, well, like how good are some of these pitchers? Ben Brown was one of those guys, was at AA, dominated his first 4 starts, and then his last 2 at AAA with just a completely new ball and no sticky stuff. He's been equally, if not better. So it is exciting times for as many years. Because even when the Cubs in the mid 2010s, all the top prospects, they were position players. Mm-hmm. It was Baez, it was Soler, it was Chris Bryant, obviously, Schwarber, Happ a little later, Contreras, Almora. They were all position players. There is just no pitching guys to look forward to. Oh. And now they have at least 5 guys that you can name off the top of your head. That's like, well, these guys could be something.
Caleb Horton today had an off day, his first off day as a pro.
Played Horton, first start at South Bend. Yep.
Cade, did I say Caleb? Sorry. Cade. Yeah. He
Yeah,
had
I think
a,
he had
a little bit of a rough. That's what is rough for him, right? I mean, what was his final line?
I saw that he gave up a 3-run home run. I don't know what
Gave
he
up a
did.
3-run jack. It was an infield single, I think.
Then a single, then a home run. Yeah.
Yeah, he gave up 6 earned runs in 3 innings pitched tonight. So
See that is the other key of
3 homers, and it was his first high A debut. It's the first time he was facing teenagers.
Exactly. That's the other key part where the Cubs. So Cade Horton, 21. He only pitched 1 season at Oklahoma, and it was like half a season because he was coming back from Tommy John.
Right.
He doesn't have a lot of pitching experience. Pitching in his 20s.
Right.
He started at low A, like you said, against basically teenagers, 18, 19-year-olds, maybe a couple 20-year-olds sprinkled in. And he was dominating those guys.
He's about to turn 22. I mean, he's going to be 4 or 5 years older than the guys that he was just seeing.
And he was dominating dudes. And at Cubs Prospects, Brian Smith pointed out in his third start, he's getting away with it. He's leaving a lot of pitches, like fastballs, middle. You can do that to like a 19-year-old. You're not going to get away with it at a level, even just one level above. And we saw that with the 3 home runs given up. So it's good. This is good. As always, though, it's a young guy coming up. You want this. It's part of the development. Hey, you can't just rear back and throw 95 down the middle. You're going to get your dick kicked in. So it's good. Any final Cubs thoughts, Kevin?
I mean, big test. I mean, we're going to find out here in the next
Minnesota help out the Sox here, maybe.
Yep, could be. I mean, it's not easy. It doesn't get any easier with the Cubs, and the Cubs took a Cardinals team that's been playing like shit, and gave them life.
That's what was really annoying. Obviously, losing the 1-run game, 2 runs on Tuesday, but the St. Louis Cardinals were like dead, and the Cubs gave him a little bit of life, which sucks.
Yep. And Contreras came back, and people were this and that or whatever. It was like whatever.
Oh, I want Mitch's thought on this. I can't even think of someone who's. I mean, let's stick with the catcher position and a guy who's like a little surly, and everyone's always said about AJ Przinsky, it's a guy you love on your team, guy that you hate when you're playing against him. After 2005, and let's say AJ would have left like 4 years later, and. But that's the thing. It's because of it's some of the comments that Contreras made, which again, Kevin, I think that some Cubs fans took way too personal.
Look. I mean, because Dansby Swanson said the same thing with the Cubs. Like, I've never been in an environment like this. Yeah. Braves fans were like, "I kill you." Same thing. And so, he's gonna say, "Hey, I really like it here." Of course, he's gonna kowtow to his fan base. And yes, they took Here's the funniest one of them all is that. A drunk Cardinals fan at a bar told another Cardinals fan writer that one time Wilson was in the bar with them, and they said because there would be a lot of Cubs fans crying over you being there. Said, "I'll make them cry for a long time to come." No, not even close to an attribute to attribute any kind of credibility to a drunk ass Cardinal fan in Florida of all places. I mean, you're already the IQ of all of it goes down just exponentially, but Cub fans have latched onto that saying, it's almost like they want it's the thing. It's like trying to make it feel better that he's gone kind of thing. So we're going to create all these narratives in our head to make us hate him instead of just saying, take it easy, bye, you didn't like us, you didn't want to be with us, cool, best of luck to you. Psh, don't let the door hit you on the way out, but I don't care. We missed you.
I do have to say,
but
there was one thing that came out right after he signed with the Cardinals, and I didn't because it was obviously Wilson Contreras trolling, which he's been doing since he's played with the Cubs, but it was in whatever that one publication that the players do, the Players Tribune, I think, where he wrote the article, and he's like, yeah, and it was like, yeah, playing in July, facing the Cardinals, I just couldn't wait to put on a Cardinals jersey, and it's like, well, I mean, you were still playing with the Cubs, so maybe, but again, that was him trolling. Of course, he was gonna say it.
Yeah, people don't take his he makes a sarcastic joke because he does. I mean, he said shit. I mean, we know this. I mean, Cub fans, it's like, where have you been for the last half decade? If this is all a shock to you, that Wilson Contreras is playing to his fan base and being a heel to their biggest rival. What did you think he was gonna do? More so the fact that he never got an offer. So he's got this, for him, and he's had a great fucking series. So. I'm not going to dog that. He's worked himself up into being a relevant offensive threat just on emotion alone, because that's what it really obviously governs everything that he does. And so to be shocked, it's so weird. It's like, what?
So taking all that and like maybe you don't get the whole story, but you get some of it, Mitch. Would you boo or would you cheer the first time he would come back?
No, I wouldn't boo him. I mean, I already said this. Like, you have to appreciate everything he did, in a Cubs uniform. Like, he helped you win a World Series. So, like, that alone, I think, helps. And then the situation that he left, too, you got to take into account. Like, it was clear, like, the Cubs didn't want him. Like, that last season for him was a shit show. They tried to trade him, like, twice. He had to go through, like, 26 farewell tours. So I think eventually you're just kind of like washing your hands of the whole thing. And so, of course, he's trolling. Of course, he's trying to help out his new fan base. And it was kind of similar with like me and Jose. But like, I loved Jose Abreu. And then he had the things kind of ripping the socks a little bit. Mm-hmm. But you still got to appreciate everything he did, one. And number two, the divorce is a lot easier when you see, oh, yeah, the Cubs aren't going to play him at catcher anymore. Like, clearly, he's having his issues down in St. Louis, too. And it's the same thing with Jose. Like, oh, yeah, you see, he still doesn't have any home runs. It's like, all right, like, this breakup's made a little bit easier. Like, if he's absolutely raking down in St. Louis and, you know, whoever the Cubs catcher is now, is it Yan Gomes still? Like, or, yeah, so which he's not. Yan Gomes is playing, like, well, but, you know, say he's struggling. Wilson's raking, and then he's still saying all that stuff, then maybe you're a little bit more irritated by it. But like, I still wouldn't boo him. I mean, and like I said, it's especially when he's playing as poorly as he has been down in St. Louis. It's always like, you know, thanks for the memories. Best of luck down there. But
it cracked me up too, though. If you were reading social when it all happened, he got a base hit, right? Yeah. And as he's jogging to first, whatever, fans are fucking booing him, like boo. So he turns around and goes, puts his hand. And all the criticism from Cubs, I can't believe he did that with his hand. He was being booed. Yeah. I mean, what do you want him to? What does he want him to bow? What the fuck are you looking for? Like, don't boo him.
I will say this too.
He's like a heel.
I agree. I mean, like all this, he's made like that's kind of how he built his brand on being the hill. Like he had that grand slam against the White Sox, and he had like a 3-story bat flip. And watching that, I was like, that sucks. How dare you disrespect the game when I'm rooting for like Tim Anderson throwing his bat like a javelin? So like, it's just how the way like fans are. I will say this though, like as much as Wilson's going to say how great these Cardinals fans are, I mean, we'll see how much he loves them when July comes around and he's still hitting as poorly as he did. Like that honeymoon phase is going to wear off really quick because the Cardinal contingent down here in Missouri is strong and they're not going to put up with any of his, like all of that extracurricular shit if he's not hitting. It's not the Cardinal way. So we'll see how happy he is with that great fan base in his Cardinal uniform in July in that packed Busch Stadium when he's still batting .230.
You know, I wrote about
66 now, which the Cubs. That's you could thank the Cubs for all that.
I just like wrote like a mini thing about him coming back and getting half cheers, half boos on Monday, and I'm like, I mean, this is like a win-win-win if like from the Cubs side and Wilson Contreras. Wilson Contreras got paid, and a lot of people said overpaid. Like that deal he got 5 years, $87.5 million. Two, the Cubs are doing better behind the plate in terms of what they want in a catcher, like controlling the pitching staff. And Yan Gomes is having an incredible, first 6 weeks at the plate. And third, Wilson Contreras, while he isn't the main problem, has been a problem of that St. Louis Cardinals pitching staff. And this could ultimately be an even bigger win. Because let's say the Cardinals for a time, they do get back on track. The starting rotation, the overall pitching staff looks better. And then Wilson Contreras comes back and starts catching again, like in June. And then they go in the tank again. Oh, that would be even better. That would be amazing.
Here's the shitty part, though. It's Flaherty and Wainwright, who haven't been good for at least 2 years now. But they've got to have some sort of excuse for this year as to why they've been mediocre. And, of course, with the losing that the Cardinals have gone through, even easier. They found their someone to throw under the bus. And those two guys are dog shit. They're dog shit. And they're that's another funny part is it's great to watch all of these guys that we've known are douches eat their own heads in this point, like eating their own. Like it's great. And I just wish the Cubs could have put their thumb on them in the series. Like a Cubs sweep would have really put the thumb on them, and they had a chance.
Just win the series, like lose the series. Stung. All right, Mitch. Sox.
Oof.
I mean, they look great in Cincinnati, but who doesn't these days?
Well, yeah, I mean, you'd think they'd look good against the Royals. Let me tell you. So, like, before I went to that NASCAR, I went up Friday, and I went to Kauffman Stadium for the first time. And I will just say this first off. I know a couple Sox fans were there. The stadium experience there. Now that stadium's nothing special as far as amenities, but the overall fan experience, as a guy that goes to usually like 10 White Sox games a year, so much better.
Oh,
Massive parking everywhere. You can tailgate out in the lot like 2 hours before the game. Now, mind you, it's a much bigger lot than Guaranteed Rate Field. I'll keep that in mind. But like the tailgate was great. You come in like 2 hours beforehand. No lines to get in. Part of that's also because the Royals suck and they're playing the A's, so it's basically a AAA team. So, context here is important, but getting into the stadium, no problem. And there's a lot on like 18,000. White Sox, even like when 20,000 on a weekend, it's a nightmare getting in and out of the stadium. The concourse is why you can walk around. It was like very eye-opening. Like, you see some of these other teams do it. It's like, wow, this is really how bad Guaranteed Rate Field's staff is at operating. As far as the product on the field, though, which was even more disheartening watching this White Sox series, they're playing the A's, right? It's a combined like 16 wins between the two teams. I'm not exaggerating when I say it's like a AAA team. Like the A's were up 5-0 and then 9-2, and then the Royals made it 9-8 and ended up losing like 12-8 in the end of the day. But like, I'm watching this Royals team. I was like, this is a disaster. And they were sitting Bobby Witt Jr., so it was like even worse. I'm like, okay, the White Sox, feeling pretty good coming off of Cincinnati. This would be a good way to keep the momentum like rolling. And they suck. Like they're getting clapped.
I felt
like
that
2
one.
games
I
in a
felt
row.
that
And
one.
Brad Keller got shelled by the A's, and we had 2 hits off him through 4 innings. You only get 1 damn run. It's just when you start feeling good about them, they pull you back in.
So everyone's saying or people started to say how Hanser Alberto was going to be the new Leori, where like he was going to be the scapegoat. But then he hit a whole bunch of home runs, and his numbers now look fine. But like Elvis Andrews, he's not good. Are they just going to keep rolling out him?
He's
at second
struggling,
base?
man. Yeah, I mean, you almost might think about putting in Lynn. So, I mean, there's so many guys struggling, though. Like, it's weird, like, how the runs just come in bunches with that team. I think they have more problems than just Elvis, because he is playing pretty solid defense. Mm-hmm. Where at least Leuri, when he was out there, like, wasn't. Like, he made a pretty nice play at second base. He held down the fort at shortstop. So I can live with Elvis floundering because the defense is there. Where, like, if it was a Gavin Sheets doing the same thing and he's giving you the defense he isn't right, then maybe you're not as lenient. The real thing that's like concerning to me all of a sudden too is, the starting, like Lucas Giolito is now like passing the eye test. He's the guy you're most confident with going out every 5th day. Like he is now the new ace of the staff as of today, May 10th, when we're recording this. Like Lucas Giolito is the ace. Like Dylan Cease is getting really concerning. Lance Lynn has gotten into like where I was like, well, I don't think it's a rule change. He's got to tweak some stuff. But you get lit up against the Royals like that, then now I'm starting to press the panic alarm on him too.
You brought up Cease and Lynn, and I had to look it up because a couple weeks ago, I did the comparison with Lynn and Dallas Keuchel from Keuchel's 2022 season, and then after Lynn got hit around against the Royals on Wednesday, I was looking up how bad is Lance Lynn? So I was looking at the live updated stats on Fangraphs. There are 71 qualified starting pitchers. Lance Lynn is dead last with a 7.51 ERA. Dylan Cease, to my surprise, is 5th worst at 5.58. What the hell happened to Dylan Cease?
I just did I wrote an article about him too. Like you look at his numbers, the stuff is about the same. The velocity is like slightly down, but it's not enough to be like, this is why it's bad. Now he is throwing a lot more fastballs than he used to. His slider usage is down, which is kind of weird considering his slider was the best pitch in baseball. But you also look at it, as far as the walks are concerned, especially in his last start against Kansas City, the walks weren't the reason he got in trouble. He got in trouble because he was having problems putting guys away. He would have 2 strikes, and there were 6 instances. He either had a 1-2 count or a 2-2 count, and then one other instance there was a 1-2 or 2-2 or like better. He was ahead in the count basically, and he ended up giving up hits. So like that's concerning too when you got a guy that makes a living off of strikeouts and his issues aren't coming from command. So I don't know what it is. Maybe he's tipping pitches. Maybe it's confidence. Maybe it's the new rules. I don't know.
It's crazy too. He's given up a hit an inning, a little bit more than a hit an inning. He is still striking dudes out, though. He's just in the middle of the strikeouts. I mean, he's got 49 Ks and 40 innings pitched. I mean, that's pretty nice.
The stuff is still there. Absolutely. Yeah.
He got a 1.512 WAR or WHIP, excuse me. He is allowing base runners like and playing with fire and not missing barrels. That burns you. And that is you're like the question is he not getting the same movement? Is it mental lapse when he's on the payoff pitch and he doesn't hold the at bat for the entire finish, instead he like loses focus right before the punch out. Guys do that. I've seen that. How many times I've been around players that could not, they get to 2 strikes and then they couldn't finish, couldn't deliver the knockout blow, and they'd miss spots and they would end up coming back and biting them. So like, is he just dropping a little bit of the focus at that point? That there's a lot of stuff this is a huge drop off. I mean, C-Stay was like, you could guarantee this is going to be a pitcher's duel if there's 2 good pitchers, but you know that you're going to see a guy go out there and carve. And C-Stay has kind of ceased for the time being.
It has been deceased, yeah.
Deceased.
Yeah, deceased.
Like you said, like Dylan Cease, like all of last year, or basically like starting in the second half, was like, all right, this guy's gonna go out there. He might only go 5 innings, but like he's either gonna give up 1 run or no runs. And like, yeah, he would get in trouble with the pitch count. There would be a couple walks, but yeah, this year with all the hits, yeah, because I was looking back at the Kansas City game, and I was like, wait, was he walking guys? You look at the box score, it's like, no, he just
kept
giving up hits. And then I look back at like 3-4 starts back, it's like, every start now, teams are just getting like 5, 6, 7 hits through 4 or 5 innings.
And I cannot emphasize this enough. That is a AAA lineup. That lineup, like Pasquantino, Perez, Bobby Witt when he's playing, like those are probably your 3. Like, yeah, those guys are major league caliber players. Like the rest, like Jackie Bradley Jr., give me a break at this point of his career, and he's hitting ropes off these guys.
Off the top of your head, do you recall how much of a drop off was the slider usage?
I'd have to look it up. It wasn't like it was like I think it was a 2% drop off from what it was. Okay. But like with 2 strike through 4 innings, it was startling because he was throwing the fastball, I think, over like 67% of the time in that last start against the Royals. And it's like, why are you throwing the fastball so much? Especially with 2 strikes. He'd be trying to like prove a fastball, but it's like, don't overthink it.
The only thing that I can think about, and even with, you said the fastball velocity isn't that much down, but it is a little down. If the slider usage is down, my brain starts turning, is there an injury? Like, does he not want to use the same like torque in the elbow with the slider? Is the velocity down because there's something wrong in there?
Maybe. So he threw a slider 45% of the time through 4 innings there. Here's the usage rate. It's dropped about 3%. It dropped from 42.9 last season. This season he's using it 40.5.
Okay.
So slight drop. But once again, it's like another one of those things where it's like, I don't think that's enough to be like, this is the reason why it's so much worse than last year. And I even came on before the season, like, I think there's going to be a slight decline because he had a historic season. Yeah. I think it's unfair to ask him to do that again. But to not even be like passable. And the even more frustrating thing is too with this team, like it feels like every time you get one thing figured, like they had a run, the starting pitching was looking pretty good for a stretch. The bullpen just sucked and they couldn't score any runs. Now all of a sudden the bullpen looks good. Joe Kelly's last couple outings, lights out. Ronaldo Lopez has been doing it. Like the bullpen's been all of a sudden really good. It's what happens when you get rid of Jake Diekman. But now the starting pitching stinks. And they can't hit. It's every time they gave like one of the 3 things working, and they can never get like if they had 2 out of the 3 going, we'd be winning these games.
You mentioned his name, and then the other big news this past week was I think it was Bob Nightingale who reported how the White Sox already, and I think this was a few days ago, so still the first week of May, they have already decided. And when you hear it from Bob Nightingale, and like, yeah, we like to shit on him a lot, but if it's Sox news, you know he's getting it from the front office or Jerry Reinsdorf. Like you're getting it straight from the source there. They're already planning to move on from Lucas Giolito, which I think that's not that huge of a surprise. I don't think
it's odd that they would leak that this early in the year, though.
Yes.
Most people.
What did you make of that, Mitch?
Yeah, that was bizarre to me. I think he's been pitching really well. Like I said, I think he's been their ace. I think last year was an outlier because he has shown he can be a top tier starting pitcher in this league more times than not, especially since 2019. He's actually one of just 7 pitchers in White Sox history that have had 2+ 200 strikeout seasons. I mean, this just goes to show the stuff he has, and he's well on track this year, and especially that Royal start he had. It was because a lot of these games come down to you need to make like 4 or 5 pitches. Can you make the big pitch in the big moment? And he did. So getting back to the initial point, whether I think they bring him back next year, I think the money that he's probably going to demand, because he is top tier caliber pitcher, contract year, he's pitching well, he's going to price himself out of Chicago. If there's one thing the Sox are good at, it's not paying players. And it's worked out with them well, letting guys walk as far as like Jose Abreu. Sad to say, it looks like it was working out well. I think Carlos Rodon, despite the good year with the Giants, I think that's worked out well. You see all the arm injury problems he's had. So it's probably the right move to let Gio walk. Now, why you would say that this early, I think it's a little strange. Maybe it's a little extra motivation for him. But this is to the broader point. If you want to look big picture, this is what's so sad about the whole thing. Even looking at Jose Abreu and Carlos Rodon, when you had all these guys, it's like having a quarterback on your rookie deal. You got to take advantage, because when it's time to pay all these guys, you're not going to be able to, and you got to let them walk, and they wasted an opportunity. There's a lot of teams you see across professional sports where this happen. The Packers, for example, you have Aaron Rodgers there for a long time. And yeah, they did win the Super Bowl, but like, I felt like they never took that big swing and capitalized on having all those guys. Like you could go across like a bunch of these, like you always got to bring in the big free agent Adam. Like the Celtics now, they got like Jason Tatum. It's great. You had all these homegrown guys and you made the right moves, but you never added that like big swing to capitalize on having all of them. And that's what's so sad about this White Sox thing. You're going to see all these guys slowly start to leave and have success elsewhere. It's because when you had your core, you didn't bring in that last finishing touch to finish it off. So that was so depressing about the whole thing. Because I don't think he's probably going to be worth the money he's going to ask. And I understand why they're letting him walk. It's just a wasted opportunity.
So 2 things, not to add more salt to the wound here, but if you look back, and again, it's the same front office, Kenny and Rickon running the show. If you look back to, if you want to consider their previous core, because, they had solid players when they had Quintana, they had Chris Sale, on cheap deals. And like you're talking about a strong ace in Sale and a good number 2 in Quintana during those times. And then you still had a few years where Adam Eaton was putting up like 4 WAR seasons in right field. But like, that eventually ran out, but he was still good for a few seasons. You had Abreu in his prime, like those from 2014 on. And even with those 4 guys during that time, they're like the best they could do is what, like a 75 win team. Like even going back to when you had those 4 like good to great caliber guys on your team, couldn't do anything. The second part on the Nightingale and that like random leak in early May, to me, was this just basically being like, hey guys, Lucas Giolito, who wants him? Like that's kind of what I'm taking it as. Like, hey,
don't you lose your leverage?
We're not even thinking about bringing him back. Everybody line up with your best offers.
Don't you lose your leverage that way, though? Because it's still a division that's terrible that you could theoretically say we could win this. And now by saying, yeah, we're not going to bring him back. If I'm a team, why am I offering you a ton? Because I know you're not going to bring him back. You have no leverage. You just lost all leverage in negotiating.
Fair. Kevin, what do you think? What did you make of that early leak? Like literally first week of May, you're already leaking your best pitcher. Yeah, we don't want him back.
I mean, I guess you're trying to send a message to everybody else that highest bidder, throw your deal down, throw your cards on the table. We're not extending them, so you have a chance to take this person. You guys can do with him what you want. I mean, that's what that kind of smells like to me. Is basically like at least throwing up a flag saying we're listening, by saying that we really don't have an intention to bring him back. Or,
so the White Sox, what are the White Sox running? Like 13 and 24, 25?
Yeah.
I think, Kevin, you said, a realistic goal could be get to 500 by the All-Star break, which, I mean, okay, you can make up 12 games in the next, what would it be, 8 weeks or so?
Yep.
Maybe. I mean, not the way that they look. The way. That's the thing. We keep saying this, and like it's at a different level, because last year we're talking about like, well, get on a roll to win the division. Right now we're just talking about like get on a roll to get to 500, which isn't that far apart from what that could be. But
But to
I
get to
just feel like
500
it's
is going to require good baseball. I mean,
like
where
it's the
they're
thing,
at
but
currently,
I
you
just
have
feel
to
like
play
it's
good.
the same. It's just the same stuff with this team. It's like
Yeah.
if it's because even if they do get to 500, like who do they have to trade to get to the next level? Like who's going to take them over the hump to like, okay, we're at 500 now. Let's
You'd
create
also
some
need people
separation.
to trade to bring in to get them
You
over
have
the
no
hump.
one to trade.
If you wanted the guy to get over the hump, you should have ponied up the money in the offseason.
But it's like with the Cubs and then NL Central. The AL Central is also a steaming pile of cow dung. And I don't think the Twins will be like, I mean, it's not happening for anybody right now in that division. I mean, both Centrals are bad. And so being at 500 means you're going to play some good baseball to get there at this point. But that just says, I mean, you could literally win that division being, again, a team with maybe 88 to 90 wins maximum. You could still win 7 to 8 games over 500 and win that Central possibly. Like it's theoretically.
You absolutely could win that division, even as bad as they've played. However, the goal when they set off this is, well, I'm not going to be happy till we have multiple, like call me after the parade, multiple championships. And now the bar's been lowered to we hope we can win the division. And the last year we have a bunch of our core. And I don't want to go through another rebuild. The fan of me does not want them to trade these guys. I want them to keep Lucas Giolito. But objectively speaking, the smart thing to do would be to trade all these guys. Because say even you crawl back and you win the division with your 80-win team. You're going to get your ass kicked in the first round. So what good is that really doing you? Because then you're right back to where you started, except minus Lucas Giolito, who you didn't get anything for because he walked in free agency. Like, at that point, you might as well just sell. As much as the division is winnable, this team's not good. If they were in the AL East, they'd be in last place by far. Like the Yankees would be in first, and they're in last there. So, we already know this team can't compete with any of the big dogs. So what? Don't waste your time. Who are you kidding?
What do you guys think is the cutoff date for one of the? Right now, it appears Lucas Giolito would be the prime trade candidate from the Sox. What do you think that cutoff date is? Where the Sox are that you guys had your time. That we don't see a way. Is it All-Star break?
Figure this shit out.
Okay.
I think you're fielding calls the whole time. You're okay, we'll listen, and then right around the trade deadline, if it's not looking any better, you pull trigger. Even if they're playing around 500 ball, it's still.
Man, I keep looking at the Sox, and it's all right. They won a few series in a row, and then I look at the records, they're still 11 games. It's a deep hole to dig out of. What happened to Yasmani Grandal? Is he just DHing now? Or
Sebi's a better catcher.
Okay.
The pitchers you listen to all these guys, they love throwing to Sebi. Even that game with Lucas Giolito, he's at the big moment in extra with the bases loaded, and Seb perfectly timed timeout comes to the mound, settles him down, gives him some extra time to kind of regroup, which we've seen multiple times this year. I think Cease had commented on how he likes throwing to Seb. Lance Lynn, I remember when Seb first came up in Minnesota back in 2021, was for a rookie, he was great to throw to. So hopefully the offense starts to catch up with it. But between the two of them, Seb's a better defensive catcher.
Well, you know what I'm thinking, Kevin. Cubs need a left-handed veteran bat. If you give the Sox a call and get Yasmani Grandal, pay the remainder of his money. This is last year, right? This is last year of his contract.
Yep.
Man, there's another trade because he's had a pretty good season, right? Yasmani Grandal.
He's been all right.
The plate.
He's been very okay. Perfectly acceptable.
Okay. I was gonna say after last year, anything's better. What else do we got for this? Garrett Crochet, Liam Hendricks. They look to be close to coming back. Hopefully that matters for the team, competitiveness wise or meaningful baseball and at the end of May and heading into June. Eloy Jimenez, just the bad luck continues. I don't even know what to say anymore, guys. I didn't see it that much. I wasn't on Twitter that much over the weekend when the news broke when he had to get his appendix removed. But were Sox fans mad at Eloy for that? Come on, what?
It was only a matter of time. It was not a matter of if, but when. I'm numb to it by now. I wasn't even upset. I'll be honest. It's Beggars. I mean, what are you gonna do? He's a luxury to have in the field. Like, you can't rely on him. And that's the other thing with this team, too, as far as getting back to 500. Like, they haven't really been fully healthy this year. But you can't be like, well, just wait till they're healthy, because you know they're never going to be healthy.
I think it was on the White Sox show for CHGO. They were saying, I think it was a few days ago, that they were listing out the total number of games since 2020 that, Robert, Moncada, Eloy, Grandal, and TA have all played. And it was like the most games they've played together was in 2020. And that was the shortened season. I think last year was a total of 2. And this year it's like 5 or something. Or no, I think it's a little more.
Well, I know they lost one of those 2.
Yeah. Rough stuff. Like, I don't know. Luis Robert got hot again. Luis Robert is the Kevin. You want to talk about a streaky players? Luis Robert is on the roller coaster of a lifetime this season. Like, it was literally his first 10 games, awesome. Next, 3 weeks, terrible. And then, I think it's been ever since his benching, he's been on fire again. Which I guess you like to see, right? As a coach, Kevin, after you bench a guy, you embarrass a guy, you don't want him sulking. I mean, he's coming out being like, hey, I'm better than that, I guess. That's a positive. I'm trying to get a positive here.
Man, why would someone on the night that Cade Horton got lit come at me for saying that I thought that Ben Brown had the best arm in the Cubs organization by citing Cade Horton, who got lit tonight? Something that Brown has not done today.
Maybe a relative Cade.
Yeah. How does that have to do with Luis Robert?
Yeah, Luis Robert, come on, Coach Kevin. I was trying to give you a softball here.
I just kind of
literally put it like meatball right over the plate.
Right down the middle of the coach.
Sorry.
I wanted like a minute of coach talk here.
Well, okay, repeat the question now so I can come back from the. I was in
Luis Robert has been on fire since he got benched. I think it was like a Saturday night game. For Doug and
Sunday afternoon, I believe.
Or Sunday, and then what was it? And then didn't know bench coach's name, said that he was hurt, but they didn't tell anyone on the coaching staff, didn't tell the trainers. Was pretty much embarrassed publicly by the team. But he's responded, so he's been on fire. So I was just like, asking like, hey, you obviously like that as a player. He's responding and he's not sulking. So what do you got on Luis Roberts' hot, like 10 days or so?
That's why you hold guys accountable. I mean, you treat everybody the same. If someone, and you could tell that there was the shit that happened because there was the miscommunication. That, either way, Luis Robert looked like shit in this situation and deserved to be disciplined. Because if he was hurt and he didn't tell him, his fault too. If he wasn't hustling, his fault too. So there was, he wore it. And part of being a leader in a clubhouse, especially when you're talking with these kind of guys, you have to be firm with them, but you can't destroy them. I mean, again, this isn't a Yerman. I mean, this actually, you know what? This is kind of a Yerman Mercedes thing in a weird way. Is disobedience breeds discipline within the clubhouse, and some guys can take it, and then it makes them better, and they come back with a little bit more perspective because they had to sit and watch from the bench from a day or two, different angle, different perspective. And some of them don't, and they take it personal, and they collapse. And which ones do you want? The ones that can take it, or the ones that can't? It's a long season. It's a lot of baseball. So I think that this is a good thing that you've seen the response from Luis Robert. That tells me that he's listened and learned, but it also tells me that you can keep pushing him. You don't have to put kid gloves on with him. You can handle him a little bit more physically than maybe someone with fragile emotions, which allows you to really dig in and develop a talent like him.
And I'll say this for Luis Robert, and I don't know if as a coach you'd look for this too. But even when he was been hitting bad, he's been engaged defensively. Like even when he was hitting poorly, still putting an effort on the defensive end.
That's making yourself valuable. It's like in any sport. If you're in basketball and you're off, you're not hitting any shots, go play some damn good defense. Go out there and pass the ball. Go get some rebounds. You don't have to always be, the guy that's scoring all the points. And in the same kind of concept, even if you're not hitting it and you're not swinging it well, you're not seeing the ball, you're in a little funk. You can't get out of your own head. Guys that go out there and still find value in all the other facets of the game. And I can tell you, if he got on base, he's probably running the base as well. And he's out there picking the baseball and doing that. Tells me that again, he's able to handle the adversity. So these are all good. These are green flags, not red flags with him. as far as what he can handle as a future pro. And as he matures, he's still kind of young, and he really did fly through the organization and was more than likely, unfortunately, allowed to probably act out as he wanted to without much. Like, what are you going to say? It's Luis Robert. We have like 4 prospects in our system right now. He's the best. So he didn't get a lot of that. Now he has no choice because there's no other way but up or down. And if you're not going forwards, you're going backwards. And I like the fact that he rebounded really well from the discipline, because that's message heard. Won't happen again, coach. Let's fucking go. That's a good thing. You want that from the guys. And now you can kind of fine tune the other points. Every time you see something, nip it in the bud.
Any other Sox thoughts, Mitch?
No. What else is there to say? I mean, Joe Kelly looks better.
Joe Kelly? Hey.
Good starts and runs.
I know Zoe hasn't been a fan, but you want Joe Kelly good, because at the very least,
That's another trade
chip. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Trying to get you amped up here because we've arrived to one of the most anticipated NASCAR minutes.
Gotta wake myself up here. Late
in
night
a
show.
year.
Late night.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for the NASCAR minute.
Oh man, where do I even begin? Well, we'll start before we even get to the race, because there's a lot before the race and after that went down. So we were in Kansas Motor Speedway this week, and it was a week that Formula One was in the United States. Big deal, because that's like kind of the biggest motorsport in America. You have Patrick Mahomes. The race was in his home state in Kansas. He was down in Miami. All these celebrities down in Miami. And the contrast between the two races was night and day. You had the Formula One drivers out there. It's too hot. We don't want to stand out in the sun for driver introductions. And then at Kansas, you got 3 wide action the whole time, proving once again NASCAR is better than Formula One. So before the race even started, I got there pretty early. We were at the track around 8:30 because there's this journalist I like. He's kind of like the Jeff Passan of NASCAR, if you will. And he has like a thing, like, he talks to people. So like, what big J journalist to another wanted to go chat him up. So I'm pre-gaming that. And as we're walking in there, Kansas Motor Speedway, they have pickleball courts. And we're watching these guys play pickleball, and I'm like, looking, I was like, that guy looks familiar. And we look, it was Austin Dillon, one of the NASCAR drivers out there playing pickleball. And, Austin Dillon's a guy that I've been trashing a lot on the show because he had a horrible reality show. He's Kyle Busch's teammate for Richard Childress Racing. He's only on there because his granddad owns the team, nepotism at its finest. He is a Daytona 500 champion, but you know me. It's like almost every athlete. You see him in public. You rip him in private, and then you see him in public. And you're like, oh, hey, can you sign my stamp collection? So that was just kind of funny seeing Austin Dillon play pickleball. Super nice guy. So now, I'm going to have to be a little bit nicer to Austin Dillon. We're walking back to the track afterwards, and we walk past, like, one of the haulers they have, and, like, they have, like, their merchandise stands or whatever, and we're, like, looking in there, and we're like, oh, my God, like, that guy looks familiar, too. It's Noah Gragson. And, he's talking to fan signing stuff, and I didn't have anything. And so my buddy had like a tin of like Zyn, like dip thing or whatever, or like the nicotine thing. So we go up to the stand, talking to Noah, and like gave him like, hey, like, no, you like mind signing like the Zyn thing, and he pulls one out of his pocket. He's like, hey, you got to get on like the citrus grind, dude. So like the dude's like a homie, and we're like, hey, listen, Noah, he doesn't like Ty Gibbs. We're like, hey, make sure you go like kick Ty Gibbs' ass today. He's like, yeah, you got it, whatever. Well, he got the wrong guy's message. We'll get to that later. But on to the race itself here. The race was incredible. Quite frankly, I've been to a lot of sporting events. This might have been one of the greatest races I've ever seen. There were 34 lead changes throughout the race. Guys going 3 wide the whole time. There was 11 cautions. First couple laps of the race, 5 laps in, Kyle Larson, he's in the front. Tyler Reddick tried to make a move past him. He wrecked Kyle Larson. So Kyle Larson, the 5 car, he has to go all the way back to the field, work his way back. Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex Jr. racing the piss out of each other up front. So it's shaping up to be a good race. People are wrecking each other all over, coming down to the final stretch. Now, Kyle Larson, who wrecked early on in the race, he works his way all the way back up near the front for the final stage. So 37 laps to go. We're on a final restart here. Kyle Larson's near the front, Denny Hamlin's in third, and William Byron, who he had a speeding penalty early on, he also got wrecked, so he was like 2 laps down at one point, works his way back to third, which was incredible as it is. So restart happens, they're a couple laps in, Kyle Larson races ahead with the lead. So he's running away with this thing. Byron's trying to hold off Hamlin. Hamlin makes the pass, and Hamlin's been fast all day. He won the opening stage. Now the race is on. We got 25 laps left. Kyle Larson's in front by a hefty margin. Denny Hamlin's trying to track him down. These are two future Hall of Famers, both ranked as the 75 greatest drivers of all time. Larson's car progressively starts getting worse and worse and worse. It's getting loose all over the place. He's trying to ride the wall, hold on to it. Hamlin tracking him down slowly but surely, tries to make a low run, couldn't pass him. Dive bombs him again, tries to make another run, slide job move. Larson holds him off. Car still like hanging loose. And this just shows how good of a driver Larson is, because this car is crap now at this point. It's sliding all over the place. Larson likes to ride that wall, though. So he's riding the high line. He slaps the wall a little bit, and that allows Denny to get right up his ass. Denny tries to make a pass here with 12 laps, still couldn't clear him. So now he's getting desperate. Like, he's getting close. Larson keeps holding him off. Final lap of the race. Kyle doing everything he can to hold on. Denny makes one last run. He comes down low. They're coming through the turn 2, down the backstretch. Denny gets right up next to him, doesn't leave him any room, cuts off the dirty air. He tags him a little bit on the side. Larson loses control. He hits the wall. Denny passes him. Last lap pass, first last lap pass in history. He crossed the finish line. Everyone's booing him because they're like, he wrecked him on purpose. Really, it's Larson. He shouldn't have get that close to begin with. Denny wins the race. Now, this is where stuff starts to go down. That Noah Gragson guy that signed the Zintin earlier, he's all pissed off because earlier in the race, Ross Chastain, as part of the Ross Chastain Don't Give a Fuck tour, he rode him up into the wall. So a little history here. A couple of weeks ago in Talladega, Ross Chastain, if you recall, moved Noah Gragson out of the row, up high. Gragson tried to get back down. He wrecks. So he wasn't happy about that. The story says that he confronted him on the team plane, because they're both Chevy drivers, afterwards, and was like pissed. So this is like behind the scene. And they two work out together, I guess. They have the same trainer. So then this happens again, and he was saying on the radio, he's like, he better watch himself, like after the race, like, I'm going to get him. The spotter's like, no, man, just focus on next week. But he's fuming because his car has been awful all year. He was having one of his best runs of the day, and they were going 3 wide. And to be quite honest, Ross Chastain has the reputation of wrecking everyone. Didn't really do anything wrong, though. He just didn't leave him. He left him one lane, and Noah Gragson felt like he didn't have enough room. Hit the wall. So he comes marching over there. He grabs a fistful of his shirt and he's like, hey, man, like, what's your problem? Ross Chastain's like, hey, stop. He's like, what the fuck's your problem? He's like, stop. Like, I'm telling him. And finally, third time, he says, stop. Ross just, bam, fast his hands clearly on the track, clocks him. You could hear the audible, like, poof. Now, Noah Gragson lost a bet a couple weeks ago, so he has this awful Amish bowl cut. The punch connects with him. You can see his hair, if you look at the video, like, poof up a little bit. Meanwhile, Joey Logano is in the background sipping a Coke like he just got out of the concession stand, laughing in the back. Chase Elliott was the one that was egging him on. He's like, hey, someone's got to do something. So all these drivers sitting there laughing. Security jumped in, so Gragson couldn't even get the punch back, pulling him away. Suffice to say, a wild afternoon at Kansas. So now I'm walking out of this track like, this is one of the craziest events I've ever seen. Last lap pass, there's a fight. My buddy's like, hey, like, let's go to Hooters. I'll be honest, I'm not an alpha male, like Nick Adams would say. So I'm not going to no damn Hooters. But oh, come on, let's go. So we go, and of course, there's a bunch of other mouth breathers in line there. So we're waiting in line, and we turn around. I was like, hey, that guy, like, looks familiar. It was William Byron, another driver, like 10 minutes out of the race. He hauled ass out of there, and he was there with his girlfriend at Hooters. So there's 3 drivers that we met in the same day. And the last one was at the Hooters parking lot 10 minutes after the race, which was kind of funny. There you go. That's your NASCAR minute from Canada.
That punch at the end of the fight reminded me of the Michael Barrett,
Yes.
AJ Pierzynski one, where I know a lot of Cubs fans like to bring it up all the time, like as if it's such a huge win. It's like Michael Barrett like just had a like non-defendable punch, and like AJ Pierzynski barely stumbled. Like that was a big L for Michael Barrett and the Cubs. That was a big L for the dude who like punched the other guy and nothing happened.
I disagree. I think, and you know what? And I like Noah Gragson now because, like I said, he signed a Zintin for me, which I think's the funny thing. It was one of those things like I don't really give a shit about getting his autograph, but like, yeah, you know, he's signing stuff, might as well. What do you have on him? I was like, oh, I got some like Zins or whatever. So like I like Noah because of that, and he was a cool guy, and he like we even told him like, hey, like go kick Ty Gibbs' ass. Oh yeah, you got it, whatever. But in this instance, one, Ross didn't really do anything wrong. Like, both of them were racing incidents, and he has that reputation because he's wrecked so many people. Anytime he's around a wreck, like people just automatically blame him. So like it's a rookie driver, day of ruins. That's one. Number two, if you're gonna go fight the guy, you don't grab his shirt first and give him the opportunity. Like, if you're going to go punch him, go punch him. Like, he's clearly upset. Like, fine, but you swing first. Like, you can't go up to the man, put your hands on him, and expect not to get hit. So, I think that one, Ross was in the right. He told him, stop, like, twice, and he got a good shot at. And then the funniest part was, Noah was all pissed because the security guard jumped in, and he couldn't get the hand there. So, I think it was funny. But if you watch the slow-mo of his hair, like, it like goes poof, because he's got this awful bowl cut. Like, he looks like Mo from the Three Stooges because he lost this bet. You know, hit him clean. Fast hands these drivers had. People say they're not athletes. Tyreek Hill, talking about Formula One, I know is trashing it earlier. Tyreek Hill was one of the people that was at the Formula One race. And they were doing this like reaction thing. Like Tyreek was with one of the drivers, and the driver kicked Tyreek Hill's ass. Like they had like the dot thing, like much faster than Tyreek Hill. So like that just goes to show like these drivers a little bit more, I guess not even athletic, but the quick reaction time, you know. Watermelon farmer too. He's got that Southern boy strength.
Out of all the non-combat sports, where do you rank NASCAR drivers in terms of fighting ability overall, general?
See, it depends who it is, because some of them clearly don't want to fight. And like
if it's Joey Logano, squaring up to you, Mitch, you think you can take him down?
I think I can take Joey. I think I can take Joey. Joey got in a big fight with Kyle Busch, but like it was Joey's pit crew that kind of roughed up Kyle Busch, so it wasn't even Joey. So, which is kind of funny. But this is not the first time someone's tried to kick Ross's ass, because a lot of people have been mad at him, and both times Ross comes out on the better end. Like Noah, if you look at the tail of the tape, you would say Noah Gregson's winning this fight. He looks a little like stockier, and Ross is kind of like, he's small. He's like soft smoking. He races like an ass, but you like talking him off the track. His personality doesn't match the way he races, but like fast hands. So I think it kind of depends. Jeffrey Earnhardt, you look this guy up. He's a guy that's like chugging beer shirtless while fishing barehanded. He looks like he could throw some hands. And then there's these other guys like a BJ McLeod. Like, I don't think I take that back. BJ could probably throw hands, but like Joey Logano, I think is a better example. I just don't think it varies. It varies. I think a lot of these guys though too know that the fight's going to get broken up, so they can act a little bit tougher going up there. Because all you have to do is get one punch in, and then they can't really do anything to you because people are going to break it up. And so that's another reason Noah, rookie mistake there. Like, you're going to go punch him. Don't put your hands on him first.
Very, very similar to a lot of basketball scrums.
Oh, yeah.
Or anytime Javi Baez was involved in any kind of scrum, it was we'll be back.
Him and Amir Garrett. By the way, the fact that those two guys are now in the same division again is fantastic. With Amir Garrett with the Royals and Baez with the Tigers.
I'll tell you what, I was surprised though that was the only fight that race, because tensions were high and like there was a lot of wrecks, and I couldn't go through all of them like I usually would just because there's so much that happened there. Right? Like Kyle Busch tried to dive bomb a group 4 wide, and then he got clipped in the end and spun out. He was pissed. He was calling Ross an asshole earlier too. The two got together, and he was dooring him down a straightaway. So a lot of drama on this one.
Now, so when there are wrecks, like obviously they're not always going to be on purpose, but like we can, even as a casual fan just looking, you can see where like, well, a guy purposely like went in there. But for like, I guess long term, like, are there still like long term, like, hey, you wrecked me 5 years ago, the next time I can get you, I'm going to get you? Absolutely. Or is it short term memory?
So back to Ross Chastain, we'll use Ross Chastain. They keep a scorebook. These drivers have excellent memories, and you don't want to, like, if you get wrecked, you definitely, like, you want to get back at them when it matters most. So Denny Hamlin, who just won this race last year in St. Louis, Ross wrecked him. And then he wrecked him again at Atlanta. So the scorebook was getting like long for him because they had a pretty long history. And he tried to get him back. Like there was an instance in like Pocono where he put him in a bad spot. He didn't really wreck him, but it was like one of those situations where like, I'm not leaving you any room, so you better lift or you're hitting the fence. And so like that was one. He'll race him a lot harder. He's not cutting him any breaks. And then earlier this year, it was funny because he got suspended for it because he talked about it on his podcast because he would have gotten, but he admitted it. He was like, end of the race, I realized I wasn't running well. I didn't have a chance, so I just let go of the wheel and turned right into the fence and hit him.
It's like
So
the
then
post game
NASCAR
when
was
the
like,
pitcher's like, "Yeah, I hit
race
him."
manipulation. So he got in trouble. But like, yeah, the long-winded way of saying is they definitely remember and they keep a scorebook. And now after that, he's like, okay, now we're even. We're just gonna like. They talked afterwards, like we're even now. Don't do it again, type thing.
Okay.
That works. I like
Noah,
that
though, and Noah and Ross. Ross has a long list of guys. He's even with Denny, but there's a lot of guys that don't like him. Like he's got a whole scorebook of just people whose clock he's cleaned or raced unfairly. People think he raced unfairly. So it'll be interesting to watch. If you want a good 5 minutes, look up NASCAR Radioactive from Kansas this week, where it's where you can hear the drivers like talking on the radio.
Yeah.
The 5 minutes is well worth your time to listen to all the shit that was going on this race.
Outstanding stuff. As always, Mitch always bringing up NASCAR, man. I loved it. So just wrapping up here again. Zoe will be back next week. He'll be back from his therapy session with Lynn. Ooh, there you go. The bush hat. Cubs have day off Thursday. Then they play 3 in Minnesota.
Help us
then
out.
3 in Houston. And then the Sox come back and they're playing Houston and then Cleveland. So
a couple big series, mostly for the Sox. Even the north side of town there, both those series.
I don't know, guys. We're gonna be a lot of middling for the next couple weeks, I think.
Treading water.
It's two ships passing in the night once again. This is kind of like 2019. You guys are on the way down after being, at least you won your like World Series, and we're kind of on the way up. And like they're kind of like they met in the middle. Like that Crosstown Classic, I remember, was fun because we're like, yeah, like we're on the way up, and like that. Now it's like reversed. The Cubs are a year away, and we're slowly declining. But it's worse because we didn't win a World Series, so you know.
That's the. Man, one bad pitch away, Kevin, and all these years could have been a lot worse. Well, for Kevin, for Mitch, Aldo, this is the Pinwheels at Navi podcast. Everybody be good. We'll see you next week.